All right. Hello and welcome everybody to the first SPF draft chat of our sixth drafting season. My name is Mark, Bug Maniac Mark, and I'm joined here as always by Eric.
Hey everyone, it's Beach.
And I was pleasantly surprised to see that we are going to be drafting much sooner than I thought. I was expecting
Yeah.
maybe a late July draft for SPF's sixth season, but it seems that everybody is chomping at the bit a little bit, and we are hoping to start by the end of June by our Commissioner Carter Flaccid Pandas count. Another exciting thing is, we just finished our very first VGC season. We got a whole lot of our friend group who were mostly used to playing singles into doubles for the first time, and it seems like they really enjoyed it because we made a poll to see what the next format should be. I thought it was going to be singles. I think I voted for singles because I just like the change, but seems like the majority of people voted to have a VGC season again, and so that is what it is. Do you have any thoughts? How do you feel, Eric, about it being VGC again?
Well, it was a unanimous decision, it seems. Maybe you aside. I mean, it was a big majority, and I'm excited because it means that it is the more fun format. And this is coming from someone who considers himself a way better singles player. I'm more comfortable with it, but VGC is exciting. I feel like it lends itself to the draft format. It's quick, and it's really exciting to see that momentum that we built this last season has just kind of pushed the next one right to our front door. I mean, a month is not a long time, and I'm excited that we have at least that long to start looking at the tiers
Yeah.
and planning our strats a little bit because I felt a little hurried drafting last time. It was my first draft. I didn't really know
How it was
what
going to shake
strategy to
out.
take. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. And, I was happy with my team, but I'm definitely going in with a little more perspective this time.
Yeah, and I think honestly, the more I think about it, it's better that we're doing two VGC drafts in a row because last season was the first foray into VGC for so many people. And they might not have known what was good. They might not have known how important moves like Helping Hand, Ally Switch, even Wide Guard are. And now that people have seen the crazy stuff you can do, I think they're going to have way more fun picking through useful tier 4s. I think they're going to have more fun building their combos and thinking about, how to make their team and what's good compared to what is good in singles.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And maybe the proof can be found in some people's records towards the end of the season. Performances were improving, and it's natural because people were spending time with their teams. Yeah, but I feel like most of the players were also getting used to doubles as a dynamic, and they're going to be going in now with no ring rust. It's going to be exciting. I feel like the competition is going to be stiffer right off the bat this season.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I guess before we get into what we're going to talk about today, which is just the preliminary deciding on tier shifts, I should explain for anybody that doesn't know what a draft is or is new to the draft. But basically, like a fantasy draft, we are making our teams with the pool of all available Pokemon in the Sword and Shield current decks. We are following VGC Series 9 rules for the most part. So we're going to be taking turns as a group of 20 some people. I'm not sure how many people are actually going to end up joining, but we're going to take turns drafting Pokemon, choosing who you want to be on your team until we all have a crew of about 10 or 11. Not sure on how the numbers are going to, shake out this time. Because we do have some changes. But after that, we will be participating in a Swiss sort of tournament where we're going to play against X amount of opponents. and then we will filter into a double elimination bracket. So this is different from last time, in which last time we took the top 12 players and put them in a single elimination bracket. I think Carter has thought that it's more fun to have everybody still in it until the very end, which I completely agree. So everybody is going to filter into a bracket, but if you do exceptionally well, you will be on the double elimination side. You will be on the winner's side of the bracket. So people who played well will basically have a get out of jail free if they lose. They will be knocked down to the loser's bracket. And those that have a poor record, they're going to start off on the loser's side of the bracket, which might seem unfair at first, but imagine that the alternative in the past would have been that you're eliminated. You still get a chance, even if you had a terrible season, to make it to the very end, which I think is just really cool.
Me too. This is Carter bringing the last chance qualifier back to life, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that it's great because I'm thinking about Riley last season, and he had a really tough time with his team at first and didn't seem super into it. But we saw him as the only person to beat Carter, the champ, the commissioner. And I'm sure Riley would have loved to keep using that new team he found and try to climb through the ranks. Riley's a great player. We could have seen it happen. And those sorts of stories are what makes, in my opinion, draft so hype for everybody, is just really cool comeback stories and upsets and having everybody continue to participate.
Yeah, and I had the feeling that a lot of teams last season waited until late in the season to make critical changes. And that might be some of the experience that players are going to bring into this season. Do I waver early? Am I just uncomfortable with this draft because it's new, or is this team actually not going to work for me and I better make a change? Stat.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how things go out. We also have a few people that I think are going to be taking this season off, and so we're going to have new players jump into the fray. We'll get to introductions in a later cast, in a later chat, but I'm hoping that James Dunlap, the old favorite of SPF, who bested you in the singles tournament of 2010.
I remember.
There's video. I have video of this on YouTube somewhere. I'll throw it up here. But I'm hoping that he will come back because, a few people that are close to him have been playing, and I would love to see him come back. I know we have Isaac's friend who's recently joining. I think Trevor Biviano, who showed up to the last Winter Olympics with his Darmanitan Galar Zen Mode doubles team, which just blew my mind at that point. I'd love to see some of that energy back into this season. So, I appreciate everybody who's taking, time off, taking a little bit of time to rest, maybe not interested in VGC. Thank you guys for your service, and excited to see the new blood come in and what they can shake up. Now, today, just because we're kind of getting into the start of the tiering system and we're going to find out exactly what the rules are, it does seem like we are going to be eliminating the Gigantamax tier as a whole. So in our VGC season last time, we had 4 tiers, and your drafting takes the form of you drafting 1 tier 1, 1 tier 2, 2 tier 3s, 2 tier 4s, and then you have a free agent pool of points, and you can use those points to purchase additional tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 in multiple combinations. Now, last time, the only Pokemon that could be Gigantamaxed were, they were set into a separate pool, and everybody could draft them. So if you just drafted normal Grimmsnarl, you would not get Gmax Grimmsnarl. But it did create kind of an imbalance, just because everybody, I was able to get Colossal, which was really good. There were 2 Urshifu Gigantamax, which were basically just free Urshifu slots, right? It's just like a free, really good tier 1. And I know that you were someone that kind of waited to get your Gmax until pretty late.
Yeah, and it's because I was confused, honestly. I just didn't know I didn't know how valuable that pick was. Um, and I don't know, I guess I sort of had this strategy in mind and I was waiting because I saw some people waiting. Like G-Maxes weren't the first picks at all, I don't think. And then once they started going, they really started going. Like it was kind of one swing around the the draft. And so I think that a lot of the top tier ones had been picked, but I personally, as a keeper of lizards, love Inteleon. So I was happy with it. And there were some matches where it did great, and I've kept using it outside just for fun. I don't know that I would pick it again, but I was happy with it by default because at the point that I got it, I was like, man, I'm going to end up with, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, or we look at Nels who got Orbeetle and was able to happen upon Grimmsnarl later because it
Yeah.
was dropped. But it does create, I think, a cool dynamic of value picking. But for maybe people that are feeling panicked or even in a bad position in the snake draft order, it can be unfortunate if all of the good Gmaxes go quickly and you are left with something less than ideal. I kind of like packaging the Gmaxes into the normal Pokemon, which was my suggestion to Carter. It does kind of change value, which I think we should look at closely. Like, does Sandaconda get better with this option? Does Centiskorch get a little bit better? Obviously, Grimmsnarl gets better just having the option. And Pokemon like Colossal, who are currently in Tier 2, definitely, I think, need to be pushed up with this Gmax option to Tier 1.
It also changes the dynamic just a little bit in terms of team preparation because, now I'm not going to face two Colossals. I'm not going to face four
Yeah.
Urshifus this season. Um, so I feel like our teams can maybe be a little bit niche, maybe a little bit stranger, just because you're going to face the big threats maybe only once this season.
Yeah, which I think in the case of the Urshifu, like, is really great because that was, we had four Urshifu and some people had to fight three of those in a row.
Hmm.
Just with the way that things were laid out. So I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air to see some of those Pokemon maybe used a little bit more and just some Pokemon in general. I know that Carter's hoping to have more Tier 2s drafted with the way he allocates the points, and I'm very excited to see that. I guess that basically covers the logistics of our draft and some of the teasers of what's to come. I think we can probably jump in and talk about the nominations that people have been giving and give our thoughts on them, if you're ready for that.
Yeah, let's talk Pokemon.
Cool. So Carter is, as always, trying to be a good man of the people. He opened up nominations for all of us to suggest what should be changed, especially since last time I think nobody gave a whole lot of input because we had not a lot of idea on how draft VGC worked. A lot of us were really rusty, but now we're prepped. We've seen what's been good in the last season. We've been watching way more VGC, and we have our suggestions. So the first one I see here is Weezing. Kanto Weezing has been both suggested for Tier 2, a 2-tier jump, and Tier 3 from Tier 4. Weezing, we obviously saw with Regigigas last season. It's really good. I've seen it with other things too. It completely shuts down any abilities with its gas, and it's always better than I think. Like when I see Regigigas Weezing, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna stop it with this or this, and then suddenly, oh, none of my abilities work. My seeds didn't go off. My terrain didn't go off. You can't intimidate Regigigas. It basically gives it clear body. Do you think that Weezing warrants a better slot than 4? Is it good enough for Tier 2?
I think it would definitely be good enough for Tier 2 in VGC, where everybody able to have a Regigigas. But if it's going to be a one-off combo, I think it's definitely deserves to be in 3. I'd say it probably deserves to be in 2 just because it's annoying. It can be paired with Archeops and perhaps some other things as well. And I feel like in a draft format, it's harder to have counters for something as directly powerful as Regigigas Weezing. So I actually think I voted for it to land in 2.
Yeah, I go back and forth here. I do think that it's harder to prep for it because your pool of Pokemon are limited, but just because you know that this combo is going to happen, I feel like you have more time to tinker your team and kind of edit things. And that's one thing we've seen from draft is that when you're on ladder, you have to make a team that blindly is going to be prepared for at any given time 100 different teams. But here in draft, you see your opponent, and that kind of narrows. And so I think that Weezing is just not good enough for Tier 2. I know that Galar Weezing is currently in Tier 2, so I actually recently nominated that to drop down to Tier 3, along with normal Weezing. But, people now seeing the power, I think it could definitely provide for some really scary teams down the line. But definitely in Tier 3, because we already have Coughing in Tier 4 as a fallback option for that.
No, you're right. And you might have sold me just because the week of prep and the ability to even waver to try and adapt to something like Weezing is a big possibility. That's actually how I dealt with my match with Master Koga.
And was that the Trapinch pickup?
Yeah, I had to pick up a Trapinch because I didn't have a Feint user. And I figured, my best bet, I don't have a fast Will-O-Wisp. I don't have any way of intimidating this thing or slowing it down or anything. So I'm just going to Feint and kill the Weezing with Gmax Inteleon, actually. So I think that you're probably right. Maybe my issue is that I feel like regular Weezing is better than G Weezing. And I want them to be separated, but...
Yeah, I think that regular Weezing is better with Regigigas for sure.
Mm-hmm.
In draft, having the fairy option might be good, and also the option to have terrain.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So maybe I'm giving G Weezing not enough credit because you do get the unburden option. But yeah, I think that everybody's kind of on the same board for that. Weezing's great.
Weezing is great.
Very, very cool Pokemon.
He's also just a great support Pokemon. He's there to annoy and kind of dismantle the team, but he's got Will-O-Wisp, Sludge Bomb. He's irritating.
Yeah, I know he can taunt.
Yeah, he's going to stop Trick Room. He's going to inflict status, and he's going to protect every other turn.
And I think he can haze, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Let's jump on because we got a lot of Pokemon. I think we have 60 nominations, so we'll see what we can get through today. But Golduck, Tier 2 to Tier 3.
I agree with this as someone who desperately tried to put a Cloud9 Pokemon on my team in Licky Licky. And I feel like there's a place for it in the draft because some Pokemon or some teams can't handle weather if you didn't bring your own weather. But I feel like Golduck has a disadvantage of not doing great against Sun. So I don't really think that he deserves to be in 2. He doesn't have high damage output. He's got some fun moves and like Disable, I guess, Encore. But it's really his ability that we're valuing here, I think.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Golduck. I actually brought him to a regionals team and nearly made top cut in Oregon with a Golduck Soak Shedinja team. Even just that combo of being able to keep weather away from Shedinja, turn him into a water type. You can also pair Soak is a cool ability if you have a Regieleki. And suddenly you get to kill Landorus if you have a Scarf Golduck. But I don't think that is strong enough. We're seeing other Soak users like Lantern in Tier 4. So I don't think it's good enough to keep him at Tier 2. I think that he's frail and I think that he'd be a good fit for tier 3 and would actually see some great use.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, Salazzle has been nominated twice, I think, once by Carter, once by Casey, to move up to tier 2. Salazzle, we obviously saw Casey pick this thing up, I think, just on a whim because he wanted a fire type, and it ended up being an amazing partner to his Dragapult, and just was an absolute terror in last season's league because this thing gets fake tears, it gets fake out, it's fast, it can Will-O-Wisp, it can Thunder Wave, and it's strong enough to do some great damage. But do you think it's good enough for tier 2?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Its support move pool is nuts, but it has offensive presence at the same time. And, Heat Wave is a great move, and having a stab Sludge Bomb, I think is pretty valuable right now with all the Rillaboom, all the Tapu Fini. Well, I guess I'm speaking in VGC where I'm running into him on every team, but I think it's good. The offensive poison types aren't that common. It's Gengar, it's Salazzle,
Right.
it's Venusaur. And I think that if you can pair him with a strong team of special attackers, he becomes very dangerous because of that fast fake tears.
Yeah. It might be a hot take here, and I think I might be the only person that voted to not move Salazzle up to tier 2. I just think with the things that are happening and how tier 2s are going to get picked up more and more, I don't think that Salazzle is good enough. I think we saw it in a very strong position on Casey's team. I think that he did a good job of having amazing partners for it, whether that was on purpose or by chance. But just I don't see myself picking Salazzle over things like Suicune or Entei or real Pokemon that can serve an offensive as well as a support purpose. But I could very much be wrong. I think that this thing might get picked up just because people saw how good it was. I don't know if it's going to give as much mustard as people need it to, though.
Yeah, I think this brings up a conversation we've had before where I'm curious, are we making these tier suggestions because we just saw something very recently do well? Or are we making tier suggestions, as objectively as possible? And I'm fine with either, honestly. I still think Salazzle's tier 2, but I hear you because there were some tier 2 Pokemon last time that I wish had been in tier 3. Togedemaru, for example, and I feel like it fills kind of a similar role as Salazzle, where it's really useful on some teams, good support move pool, frail, and only so offensive. So depending on how things shake out, maybe my opinion will change, but boy, I like it. It's a lizard, and I think that its support move pool deserves 2. Just make sure that if you pick it, you're pairing it with some special attackers that can take advantage of those drops.
Yeah. Yeah. And then moving on to another Pokemon that I think has been influenced by his usage is Vikavolt. Vikavolt was picked up by the Seattle Sea Kings, who made it to the finals, had a great record, was the main season seed 1 going into the playoffs bracket. Vikavolt may be a Pokemon that people kind of slept on because it has just amazing special attack. It has pretty cool coverage for being a Dynamax user. And I do think it gets some other options. It gets String Shot, which we didn't see it used. I know I've talked way too much about String Shot, so I'll keep it short, but I think that's great. But do we think that Vikavolt is good enough to be a tier 2 to kind of play with some of those big boys up there?
My gut says no. I would keep it in 3 just because I feel like its speed is a major disadvantage. Ryan always seemed to find ways around it, sometimes with Trick Room, but I feel like in order to succeed really consistently, and he might prove me wrong again, he might pick it again. It did so well, but I feel like in order to perform really consistently, it has to be on a dedicated Trick Room team. And to me, that kind of limits it value-wise, you know, as someone who doesn't like Trick Room.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I love bugs, and I think it is a great defensive typing for with Levitate. I think that offensively it's pretty good. Like there are very few Pokemon that you can't do much to with Vikavolt. I'm thinking like Landorus, it would have a really tough time with. There are a few others, I think, like Dragapult. You know, it has a tough time really cracking through that. But I think it has good options. I'm just wondering if, you know, I'm trying to think of a good special attacking tier 2. Raikou, which can't be flinched, has a great move pool, has Snarl, has speed. Like, how much better is Raikou than Vikavolt?
You could argue that they're more equal than we think, maybe just because Vikavolt is gonna cover a whole lot more options.
Yeah.
It's got a better move pool, and it's going to stick around longer too. As I feel like it's just a more potent Dynamaxer as well.
Yeah, and I do
But
think that there's the max Flutterby is really good. We've seen how good Wormwind is, and a Flutterby, I think, just packing in a Snarl
yeah,
into a 145 base special attack monstrosity is really good, and that's part of the reason I think that Vikavolt can do so well is because it gets that strong stab option.
yeah. Maybe I'm gonna say I wouldn't be upset if it got pushed up to tier 2, but that I wouldn't be the one to make that push because I I'm uncomfortable with the weaknesses that it does have, like the fire and the rock weakness, literally, and then the speed deficiency
Yeah.
is tough. It knows that it's going to take a hit, but I think that Ryan was also a great user of Ally Switch, which I happen to love, and that works too if you're going to start off with a real slow, bulky, powerful guy like this.
Yeah, and I think it gets Eerie Impulse too, as well as I'm just thinking about its support options, which are not
They're not
absolutely
bad.
zero. Though you know you probably don't want to be running your Vikavolt to support. You grab a Thundurus, grab something else. Let's move on. We have a slew of tier 4s that people want to be pushed up to tier 3. So yeah, in this draft, tier 4 is the lowest, and usually the one that people struggle with the most because they're having a tough time finding value. Tier 4 is my personal favorite because I think it's really fun to find that puzzle piece that you're looking for in the junk pile. But we have Pokemon, I think all of these were used last season, and that's probably influencing the push for them to be moved up. But we can kind of rapid fire. We'll go through these. First up is Sawk, which made it to the champion team. Carter picked him up, and he did pretty well. He has Sturdy. He has 120 or 125 attack, decent speed. He gets Taunt, fine move pool. Do you think that Sawk can move up to tier 3?
I do think Sock could move up, and actually, I think I just voted recently to not. But Sturdy is so valuable in a format with item clause, and I feel like a stab close combat coming off of that kind of attack is just important. He also gets inner focus in case you want to run him as an anti-intimidate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think he's a big fake out target.
yeah, he's a really big fake out target. So I think that compared to some of the other stuff in tier 4, yeah, I could see him being in 3, more so than Cinccinno, for example.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Sock's good. I am kind of a proponent of trying to keep as much good stuff in tier 4 as we can, just to not overload tier 3 and to make sure that people aren't really scrounging again. Though I do love, seeing those off-list pickups that we saw last time, like Duskull and Trapinch. But I could see this going either way. I'm kind of on the fence. I haven't voted on this yet because I don't think that I can be the one to make the decision
Swing
here.
it. Yeah, I might recast, honestly. I can see it going either way as well, because right now it's hard to be a fighting type. You know, Fairy is powerful, and Max Airstream is maybe the most common Max move.
Yeah.
So, oof. If you're not Urshifu, it's tough to be a fighting type right now.
Yeah. And then next up, you mentioned it, but Cinccinno. We saw Tyler, make great attempt at using this thing. It has Skill Link. It has a great move pool. It gets Aqua Tail, Bullet Seed. I also know that it gets After You, which is something that we didn't really see a whole lot of, but After You can be used in a lot of fun ways, whether it's getting some fast status, getting your really strong, like a max Rhyperior to net that kill. You can After You Trick Room. You can After You a Focus Punch, because After You completely ignores any sort of negative priority. So you could After You Whirlwind if you want to stop Trick Room. Stuff like that. Though I guess you can just normal Whirlwind, but if you needed it to be a little bit faster to not get killed, Dragon Tail, those options. But it is quite frail. It is another Pokemon that falls to Fake Out, and maybe is even a little bit too frail to want to Dynamax.
Yeah, maybe the move pool to Dynamax, but not the power. And I'm thinking this is an interesting Pokemon, like you said, to keep in 4, because I would definitely consider picking it up for those niche uses. But I just don't think it has the presence to merit a tier 3 pick. I wouldn't want to spend my Focus Sash on this Pokemon.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be wary, and I think that makes me think of tier 4s. Right? It's like you're not sure you want to give it this item because you maybe want to give it to your Weavile, your Kartana, your important sweeper that you want to make sure lives, your Durant. I don't know, but I also voted to keep Cinccinno in tier 4 here, just to have an interesting offensive option that can do some fun things. It can definitely be annoying. I was just thinking now with the King's Rock Skill Link Flinch strat, which is
that is annoying.
Maybe even scary enough to try to push it, because I don't want to face that. But you can't flinch max Pokemon, so I don't know how good. Speaking of the flinching, we see another Pokemon right after that can also employ the Skill Link King's Rock, Cloyster. Tier 4 to tier 3. I actually forgot that he was in tier 4.
Me too.
He does have interesting setup options. He's very bulky, which I think we've seen as a good thing in VGC. I'm sure he can Icy Wind, but he gets Shell Smash. He gets the flinch option. What do you think about this guy?
I think he can't take a special hit to save his life. But Shell Smash alone, I think, is enough to make this a tier 3 pick, because if he's got a good enough support Pokemon alongside him, whether it's through Fake Out support or Follow Me or whatever you choose, if this guy sets up and they don't have the priority to stop it, it can shred a couple Pokemon, no problem. And I don't really think of tier 4 when I think of a Pokemon that can just dismantle the opponent's team if it's not prepared.
Yeah. All right. We were briefly interrupted there, but I think we were talking about Cloyster still, and seeing if you thought he would be good enough for tier 3.
Yeah, my answer is yes, just because the offensive threat, if you pull off the Shell Smash, is enough to win games. Yeah, that's my vote. Though, he might not even get picked up if he's a tier 3. That's the other thing to think about.
Yeah, that's another thing too for me. I know he does have multiple options, and I'd be curious to see if he learns Body Press. I don't think he does, but that would be a cool option for him. But I would also, I'm going to say that he's sticking to tier 4 for me, because I don't think that his, he's a scary shell smasher, but I also think Crustle is, who has sturdy, and I don't think that he should move up either, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Before that, let's talk about Jynx, another Pokemon that saw great use, and I think is maybe a Pokemon on the list that I think should go up to tier 3 just because of its versatility. This thing gets Fake Out, it gets Trick Room, it has a water absorption ability, it has access to Sleep in Lovely Kiss, and it is pretty strong on the special side of things. Gets Icy Wind, of course. What do you think about Jynx?
Tier 3 for sure. And I think that maybe it's easier to decide whether a move is warranted when you see Pokemon next to each other. Because I feel like Jynx stands out in this group probably as, if only one is going to move up to tier 3 for me, it's Jynx. For that support move pool, for Trick Room that's kind of unexpected. And I feel like it can do some weakness policy proc stuff as well. So yes.
Yeah, I think it's good. The fact that it tore my team apart not once but twice in the last season makes me believe that this is strong enough to, stick your sash on there, or even Choice Scarf, But
yeah, what's his special attack stat?
Let me check it up on my phone, so I'm not. But I feel like we're in 95 at least. Though I think it's more because its speed is 95, right?
Is it 125 special attack?
115.
Okay.
And 95 speed, which is a great speed tier. You're outspeeding Landorus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see what else it gets. Role play, which we don't really see used, but I can see it having some use. Obviously, the Fake Out.
Role play. Weather Wars.
Weather Wars. Yeah, exactly. Can do weather stuff. It gets Fake Tears itself, which...
Oh, that's nice.
We're talking about how good Salazzle is, and I feel like Jynx reminds me of Salazzle being this very frail, Fake Out, Fake Tears status machine that can also get some kills on what you might need it to. So, with that said, I think, a pretty safe tier 3 push for me.
Safe. I agree.
Crustle.
Didn't Crustle get picked up kind of late last season?
Yeah, I think Riley ended up picking it up. I'm not sure if it was a waiver or just a last pick, but Crustle was on the tier 4 block, not getting picked for a long time. And this is a Pokemon that I thought is good just because Sturdy is really good. We all know that. And this thing also has the option to, I think it gets Wide Guard. It can Shell Smash. It just has pretty strong offense. It gets Rock Wrecker max move, which is making it a 150 max move, which is usually stronger than what you get. Is it good enough to compete with other tier 3 Pokemon? However, I personally am not sure.
No, I think that this is another Pokemon that should probably stay in 4 and should probably get selected sooner. Wide Guard, I guess, is just not as important as it used to be. Maybe in a max move world, you really have to know that someone's going to go for a Heat Wave or a Rock Slide or a Snarl.
Yeah, and that's about, it. Maybe a Dazzling Gleam, but...
Yeah, it's just not... I don't think that in itself is enough, and I don't think that when you're this slow of a Shell Smasher, that... I don't think it makes him as good as Cloyster as a Shell Smasher, even though he's got
Sturdy,
the rock offense and Sturdy. Yeah, I don't. But I would keep him in 4 and just be excited that he's in 4 and hope that he gets picked up.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that, we got to have the good Pokemon, and having tier 4 threats offensively is great, especially if they're more one note like Crustle. I think that's perfectly fine to have in tier 4. And then the last one that I think we're going to talk about today is Pilowswine, that NFE wonder that has actually been picked up by Carter in a singles draft. Seattle Seeking's coach Ryan picked him up in the last time, and he actually did well. He gets Ice Shard to activate weakness policy stuff. He gets Thick Fat, which just helps him a lot defensively with Eviolite. I think he might get Oblivious still, right, for being able to not get intimidated. What do you think?
I think that this might be the classic example of people pushing for it to move up just because of how situationally it was good on Ryan's team. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think that I would pick it as my go-to ground type. But I was very, very impressed with how long it stuck around. And Ryan ended up Dynamaxing it a couple times, and it was even valuable in that role. So I feel like I could be wrong. I think that Mamoswine gets underused in classic VGC. So, maybe this guy is better than I give him credit for.
I think you're right to say that, we saw it as activator for weakness policy Drifblim, and also just a great partner type-wise with Drifblim. And Ryan was able to pilot a lot of his Pokemon on his team very well, like Armaldo. That I don't know if I would push for Armaldo being tier 3, but some people that might have had a really tough time breaking through might say that it should be, especially with the Swift Swim option. But I'm getting into my own head there. But I would probably say to keep Piloswine as tier 4 as well. I think that it has some pretty common weaknesses, even with the Thick Fat to shore up that fire type weakness. But you're getting hit by fighting and water, which is already a bad start, as well as steel, which is becoming, it's great. Steel Spike's great and pretty good in draft, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think that we should try and stick with the attitude that tier 4 shouldn't be drained. We can't deplete tier 4 of interesting stuff.
Yeah, especially with a 20-person season in which we want people to be grabbing 2, 3, maybe 4 tier 4s. If you want to have enough supply for people and for people to make cool teams, you have to keep these guys. I know that there are some other nominations later, and I was able to dig up with some research a few tier 4s that I think should be added to the list, including Carkol, which I think could be an interesting sweeper, and Seadra, a Swift Swim sweeper that I think should have been on the list from the start. But we can talk more about those when more nominations come in and we have, the rest of this 60 Mon list to kind of crack through. I think we'll tackle that next time and maybe think of an expedited way to bring up our notes on it and what we think. But thank you guys for listening, and I hope this gives you some insight on maybe what to look for when you're making your votes for what we're going to see this season.
I'm stoked. It's draft season.
Yeah, it's draft season has ended, and it has come again. So, yeah, once again, thank you guys. We're going to be doing a draft cast, hopefully, once a week. Again, try to keep up the tradition. I would love to be able to interview everybody a little bit to get a meet the members of this draft season video. I think that would be really cool. I would love to have anybody that wants to participate in the draft, again, reach out to me and let me know. And we will keep trying to bring you guys good thoughts on what's going on as the month that we have remaining until the season starts slowly ticks down. Thank you guys as always. I'm not sure if you have any final words.
Just that I'm excited to be here for my second draft. I'm hoping that I perform a little better. And I'm worried that this month is going to go fast and I'm not going to feel prepared enough. So I'm glad that we have this platform to talk through a little bit.
Yeah, we can start rethinking on Absorb Bulb and
That's right.
its applications, just as we thought we should put it down since we were out of the draft season. But thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.